Hello, hello. Thank you again. Thank you guys for joining us for another We are so excited to have another amazing author, Dr. Evona Lee Smith, who is absolutely amazing. Oh my goodness, mind-blowing. How are you doing, Dr. Smith?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well, especially now talking to you. Oh my goodness. Oh. So Dr. Smith is a wife and a mother of 5. So yes. A superwoman. She's a native of New Orleans. Did I say it right? I didn't say it right, did I? New Orleans.
You're good. You're good. You didn't say it right, but it's okay.
She also is a doctor in the nursing field. She practices as a nurse practitioner, and she's an author. Oh my gosh! Like who? Oh my goodness gracious! She is the owner of a publishing company called Strength Builders Publishing LLC, and she has written a couple of, or few, probably several children's books. And I am just already blown away by the amazingness of who you are. So I'm gonna just get right into it because I just want to know everything. So, what made you write the books that you're writing? Like, what caused you, like, within? I just can't even ask the question.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here and to have an opportunity to speak in front of your audience. What led me to writing, as you said, I'm a family nurse practitioner. About 6 years ago, well, I always loved to write. Even when I was a kid, I used to make up little stories and write them in school. And when I was at home, writing was always like a hobby for me. Mm-hmm. As I got older, people would ask me to like edit their papers, and I just did it for fun. I just love writing, but I never considered publishing anything. So I was working as a nurse practitioner, and my doctor told me that I had to have surgery, which was a routine procedure. Well, once I went in for surgery and I came out, I had some major medical complications, which my vocal cords were paralyzed. I had neck surgery. I had my thyroid removed, and I was mute. I could not speak for about 6 months. Your vocal cords, just to give you a little short synopsis on that, has a lot to do with your upper airway. So if your vocal cords are paralyzed, meaning they're closed completely, you don't have an upper airway. So I was basically in respiratory failure. So they had to put a tracheostomy in my neck, which is a breathing device. So I could not practice at that time as I did before. So after going through multiple surgeries to get the tracheostomy removed, I still had some deficits. I have a breathing disorder. So I was left to figure out, where do I go from here, kind of. So I went back to school and I got my doctorate in nursing, and that was online. I had to do something to kind of like keep myself going. So I went back to school online. I received my doctor of nursing practice. And then I'm like, okay, now what? So the pandemic came upon us, and I saw how it was affecting my children when we were on lockdown in the very beginning. You know, we couldn't go anywhere. They were separated from their friends. And I saw my kids getting a little depressed. I have all 2 teenagers now and older kids, but I had a preteen and 2 teenagers during that time. So they were getting into a little depression. So I decided to write a children's book, which my children's book is really for kids younger than them, for school-age children,
Mhm.
to help them to cope during the pandemic. So I wrote that book overnight. I got one of my friends who's an artist to illustrate it.
Mhm.
And then a few months later, I published my first book. And my book was self-published, the first one. And I did a lot of research on how to self-publish. And I published my first book, Sophia's Pandemic World. Well, so that's what led me to become a writer. My love for writing. First of all, my medical complications. And then I felt like everything happens for a purpose. And the complications that I had, it kind of catapulted me into my purpose. And that is pretty much just what I was doing as a nurse practitioner. And that's to build strength in others. And so that's my purpose with my books. And that's why I named my publishing company Strength Builders Publishing, because I want to write things that build strength in children and adults.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And you are absolutely strong to have 3 preteen and teenagers in the house. Ah,
It's a job. It
oh
is
my
a job.
goodness. I was a teacher. Being a teacher, yeah. These once
Yes.
they get that, and then I have a sister who's a teenager. Goodness gracious, we want to throw her out
Yes.
the window daily.
I understand. Trust me.
So I understand. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
you definitely did have to find some way to pull them out of this funk because
Yes.
that would have driven you crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to because I'm just very interested in hearing this book that you've written, and you wrote Sophia's Pandemic World, and then this other one
Yes.
you have is called Breathe.
Yes.
Is that a part of kind of teaching about your disability that you have, or the complications you were having with your breathing during that time, or was this book written for another purpose?
This book was actually written for another purpose. So, like I said, my purpose in writing is to help children to cope with difficult circumstances. So, as we all know, during that time, we had the George Floyd incident. And so there was a lot of social unrest, and it still is during that time, during the pandemic. So, and I also, and my kids are mainly my inspiration for what I write. I saw how angry my kids were with the social injustice that they were seeing on television, and they actually wanted to get out and do something, because it made them that angry. So I sat down and I wrote this book, Breathe, which I called it Breathe because we're all familiar of those words that George Floyd uttered as he was losing his life. I can't breathe. And so I wrote this book, Breathe, and I gave it the title based on that phrase, I can't breathe. And shortly after that, we had t-shirts with I can't breathe. And I want to, by at the same time, giving honor to those who have lost their lives due to social injustice, but encouraging our children to breathe, even in the midst of the social unrest and the social injustice that they might see. I wanted to write something to empower them in a time like this to know that they can breathe.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring and beautiful.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'm going to allow you to just go ahead and take the reins and read the book. It's just, I'm just so anxious to hear it and to kind of experience what your passion is and what you're saying in this book. So go ahead and start with the book.
Okay, thank you. From the Sophia and Friends series, Breathe. This is the cover. And on the cover, I have the names of George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Ahmaud Arbery, Emmett Till, and Breonna Taylor. a short story to help children in coping with social injustice, written by Dr. Evona Smith, illustrated by Alec Johnson. This book is dedicated to my late father, Robert Walter Vick Sr. There are so many Black men who are upstanding citizens, love their wives and their children, the men who work their fingers to the bone to provide for their families while equipping them with morals and values, are often under-celebrated, underappreciated, and underrepresented. My father was one of those great men. As a little girl, my father gave me a great sense of security, knowing that he would protect us from all harm. I could lie on my pillow at night and rest peacefully. He was the strongest presence in my life as a little girl and a young woman. He loved hard. He was a provider, full of wisdom, a counselor, and as an adult, he became my friend and confidant. Daddy, I remember your bright smile, your chuckling laugh, your kisses on the cheek, and your love and sense of pride for your grandchildren. Daddy, I remember the love you had for your sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, and all the young men that you took under your wing to help them along the way. Your legacy will live on through your children, grandchildren, and all those whose lives you have impacted. Daddy, your life mattered. Sophia and her friends Steph, Sydney, and Stephen were playing a game of tag when suddenly they heard sirens. Steph ran from the police sirens as if he was scared. Sophia and her friends stood and stared. They all were very confused, wondering how Seth could be so rude. Seth ran all the way home as if he was running for his life. He burst through the door of his parents' home and ran into his room. His dad couldn't help but notice his face full of gloom. Seth's father was alarmed and he wondered, did someone attempt to do him harm? He walked swiftly to his room to find a closed door, and he began to worry even more. What's wrong, my son? Asked Seth's dad. What is causing you to feel so sad? Seth looked up at his father as tears ran down his face. Then his dad's heart began to race. Did someone hurt you, my son? Asked Seth's dad. Seth replied, I was afraid that the police would shoot me with their guns. So when I heard the sirens, I decided to run. Seth's dad replied, I knew that one day we would have this conversation. Due to all of the social injustice that you see happening on the news stations, this society is full of injustice and oppression. But son, it's time that I teach you a lesson. As a Black man in America, you will deal with discrimination, stereotyping, and racial profiling. This is indeed a reality for you and for me. This ignorance does not define who God made you to be. Son, I need you to breathe. George, Brianna, and so many others did not deserve to die. This injustice has caused many people of all colors to cry. When you look into most Black men and women's eyes, you can see the pain. It is a feeling of oppression that can be hard to explain. Most can recall when they first experienced the feeling of oppression. As a Black person in America, it is one of your first life lessons. Whether it is being racially profiled by the police or being profiled by a store clerk as a thief, an incident that you will never forget. It is a feeling that haunts you so that it causes bad dreams and night sweats. Seth looked up at his dad with tears and asked, "Why do some people show so much hate? Is it because they cannot relate?" Seth's dad replied, "The answer is quite simple, my son. It is ignorance often passed down from generation to generation. Now, I am teaching you not to believe that every word you hear is true." The world will tell you that you were just a slave. People of color don't know how to behave. Although our ancestors were slaves, this is true. Slavery does not define me and you. They will cloud your mind with images of men and women in chains. But you will not be taught how your forefathers had the strength to sustain. They sustained harsh conditions, whippings and beatings, yet they persevered in reaching to overcome their circumstances when they were not given many chances to succeed. My son, I need you to breathe. Our past in this country as slaves, we do acknowledge, but let this be a motivational tool for you to go to college. Although odds are often set against you by others, do not let anyone define you only by your color. You are more than what society perceives you as. You are a strong, intelligent man, full of class. When you embrace who you really are, the feelings of oppression will not overtake you. Now breathe, my son. The words that I'm speaking are true. You are capable of earning a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree, like George L. Corn, who created the first X-ray machine. You can become well-established in the field of electronics, like Otis Boykin, whose future was not promised. He is best known for inventing the pacemaker that regulates the heart. And believe me, son, you are just as smart. Did you know the first clock made in America was created by a Black man? His name was Benjamin Banneker, an author, astronomer, and a mathematician. That's right, you have that same kind of mind. You can invent something that is one of its kind. You can follow the same path as Dr. Patricia Bath, who conducted the first cataract surgery. Now breathe, my son, and listen closely. Just as George Washington Carver, you have the ability to think. He's known for making cooking oil, axle grease, and printer's ink. Dr. Mark Dean had a mind just like yours to reach even higher. He built his own computer, radio, and amplifier. Let us not forget about Dr. Charles Richard Drew. In a time of need, he knew just what to do. Those who need blood have him to thank. His work with blood plasma led to the invention of blood banks. Like Dr. Shirley Jackson, you must put your knowledge into action. As a known theoretical physicist, she made many advances in the field of science. Also, I would like to tell you about Garrett A. Morgan. As he did, you can make a mark in this world that will last. He's known for the traffic signal and the gas mask. There are also unsung heroes such as James E. West. He developed microphones, and just as he did, you can develop the best. And anytime you see a truck while we are on the road transporting frozen food, you can thank Frederick McKinley Jones, because he invented that dude. My son, these great inventors paved the way for young men like you. So when someone tries to label you as anything less, you know that you are preceded by the best. You must work hard and always read. You can do great things, son. Now breathe. Now that you know you can invent, let me tell you about our freedom fighters who by God were sent. Nat Turner was an enslaved preacher, not satisfied with being a slave, became a rebellion leader. Though his methods today, I would not recommend. The tactics that he used got the country's attention. Then there was Harriet Tubman, who rescued 70 enslaved persons, including family and friends. Just as Nat and Harriet, you can free your people who suffer from poverty and a lack of knowledge. You can empower them with tools to succeed by sending young people to college. Like Sojourner Truth, for justice you can stand. After being freed, she became the first Black woman to win a court case against a white man. You can become a lawyer and serve in the Supreme Court, like Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American justice. You can overcome hate, like Macon Boylan Allen, the first licensed African-American lawyer in the United States. Then came Charlotte E. Ray, the first African-American female lawyer, whose name lives on today. My son, you can fight for legislation of laws that can give us what we need. Sit back and listen, my son. Now breathe. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you can have a dream that becomes a reality. Leader of the Civil Rights Movement, a symbol of nonviolence, he was thought to be. Spent his life fighting for equality. And we will always hold dear the values of our leader, Malcolm X. By any means necessary is a phrase he's known for best. Use these words that Malcolm quoted to reach your goals and to fight the oppression of your foes. No matter what obstacles you face, stay focused, endure, and keep the faith. You may want to be a part of a movement, like the students in the Little Rock Nine. The stand they took against segregation in schools has stood the test of time. You could become a member of the NAACP or the Congressional Black Caucus to ensure that as a people, we are making progress. You could be a great writer like Langston Hughes or Toni Morrison to uplift your people and to declare your generation. You could write poetic words like Robert Hayden and James Baldwin. You could be a famous artist like the painter Jacob Lawrence, the best known African-American artist of the 20th century. My son, your name can be written in history. You could break records in athletics like Jackie Robinson and Arthur Ashe. My son, you could establish a legacy that will last. You could be like Mike or Kobe Bryant, masters of the game. You could be a household name. If you want to be an actor like Sidney Poitier or Denzel Washington, you could win an Academy Award. The work of these great men helped to move Black actors forward. Barack Obama made it evident that a Black man could be president. Just as President Obama led with wisdom and grace, in history with other presidents, we could see your face. As you can see, my son, Black people have stood the test of time. Though oppressed and sometimes hindered, we've continued to rise. Your abilities are unlimited in what you can achieve. Do not let others define you. Continue to believe. So many have led the way, and with your generation, we will reach higher heights. One day I pray it will not matter if a person is Black or white. Seth gazed in amazement at his dad and said, I'm so glad we had this talk. Now I don't feel so sad. Black people have done so many great things, though it still hurts that some people don't look at us as human beings. I feel stronger knowing that I can be anything I want to be when I grow up. I can even stand up against this violence, letting the world know that we've had enough. I want to get more and more education so I can have the power to change this nation. Yes, you can make a change, my son, one day at a time, said Seth's dad with a smile. The change will first begin with you. Get your education and live a life free of crime. Stay away from drugs and influence one person at a time. Our country will go far when we unite in showing the world at large who we truly are. A people who possess intelligence, strength, and courage. A people who can persevere, even though at times we get discouraged. With all these things, I have said to you, when you feel oppressed, you can stand on these truths. Keep your eyes on the prize and be determined to succeed. Your life matters, my son. I need you to breathe. Your lives mattered. George Floyd, Emmett Till, Ahmaud Arbery, Hara Rosser, Botham Jean, Alton Sterling, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Gabriella Navarez, Michael Brown, Elijah McClain, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, Tatiana Jefferson, Stephon Clark, Philando Castile, Michelle Cuso, Janisha Fondale, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Tanisha Anderson, Sandra Bland. There are many names of African Americans not listed here who were killed unjustly. Let them not be forgotten, and do your part to make a positive impact in your community. The end.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you so much.
A lot of information, a lot of truths that still linger today, and a lot of names that many people don't hear anymore. So
Yes.
that's a book that's probably definitely much needed in the community, especially when years and years pass and people stop saying their names.
Yes.
So yes, thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't even know where to go from that, because it's just, I feel like now I just dropped the mic. There it is. So as a writer, I know you realized this is something that was needed during a very difficult time in your life.
Mhm.
were there any books that you read as a kid or that you read to your kids that you read now that inspired you to write or when you're writing?
Well, when I was a kid, there were not many books that represented me. And I read books such as the Nancy Drew series. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that because, I enjoy trying to figure out what would happen next
Yes.
with the characters and solving the mysteries. I also enjoyed a series called Amelia Bedelia. I'm not sure if you heard that. That was my favorite. Amelia Bedelia was my favorite series as a child. But my motivation with writing is to allow my children and kids that look like my children to see themselves reflected in literature. Unfortunately, I didn't really get that much when I was growing up. The characters in the books didn't really look like us. But now, and even with the rise in representation and diversity in children's literature, it's still, believe it or not, a small percentage of children's literature that actually represent children of color. So that is a motivation for me to encourage diversity in children's literature. And that's why I'm going to continue to write books with characters that represent our kids. Specifically in this book, there's not, and as I read in my dedication to my dad, we don't see strong Black fathers represented in the media, on television, in books. And I think we need more of that also. So that's my motivation, is to promote diversity. And diversity is good for all races, right? Kids that are of other races should read books with diverse characters.
That's a huge reason why Culture Books is around, so that we can open up their eyes to the cultures and the diversity that we have right next door in our community, in our lives that are here,
Yes.
So that's huge. That's beautiful. So where can our readers find your books? Because it seems like also, are these 2 books the only books that you're writing, or are there more creeping out?
There are more creeping out, and I have a coloring book that accompanies Breathe, and the coloring book is more of the Black history that's in the book. So it helps children to learn about the characters that we talk about in history in the book while they color. So I have a coloring book with Breathe. I also talked about Sophia's Pandemic World. I have that book, and a coloring book with Sophia's Pandemic World also, which teaches kids how to take precautions to prevent contracting COVID-19 in language that they can understand. I also have journals that I've written, guided journals. One is called Since You've Been Gone. And it's about, my book was dedicated to my dad that I read today. I lost both parents, and my children, when my parents passed, my children went through a lot of grief. So I wrote a guided journal to assist those with coping and with loss of a loved one. It's called Since You've Been Gone. And I have another children's book that I'm working on that should be coming out early next year. It's about, I'll just tell you what it's about. It's about a girl with magical Afro puffs. And her Afro puffs give her power to do certain things. But she realizes her power is not just within her hair. It lies within her when she changes her hairstyle. So that's my book that's coming up over probably early next year. But you can find my books on my website, strengthbuilderspublishing.com. You can find all the books that I've written and published so far. And they're also available on Amazon.com.
Awesome. So we're coming up toward the end, and It's just been such a pleasure talking with you and listening to your passion and why you do this. But is there anything that you would like to say to inspire young readers and writers watching now?
I would like to say that you can do anything that you you set your mind out to do. I never imagined that I would become a published author. That was not even in my radar. I knew to go to college and get my degree and get a good career so I can take care of myself. However, if you have a dream, do not give up on your dreams, no matter how young or old you are, because you can do anything that you set your mind out to do. The sky is the limit. Don't put yourself in a box. Don't limit yourself. And if you want to be a published author, just start writing. That's the hardest part, the writing. Once you write, then you can go from there. So that's my words.
Absolutely. You heard it, kids. And from a doctor, no less. It has been such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your passion with us.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to share my passion with your audience. It was a pleasure.
We are also going to be giving your book away, so to a deserving child. So that'll be coming as well. So if you love this book and you want to share this with your family, with your kids, please comment below and the book is yours. We will also be doing the giveaway within the week. So you'll be seeing all of that good stuff. And just know, usually I'll put it with some type of question that they need to answer to kind of tell me more about what they love and who they are and how this connects to them. So it's going to be great. I'm so excited to share this with the audience. Thank you so much for coming on. You're very welcome anytime. And hopefully we can get you back on again for your next book, because we want to hear more from you. We want to see where you're going, what's going on. This is awesome. Such an inspiration. Yes, great. All right. Thank you guys for joining us and for watching this amazing children's book author and doctor of nursing. Ooh, superwoman. Dr. Evona Smith, thank you. Thank you all for watching. We hope you come back next week to watch more as we bring back another amazing author. Thank you for watching. Read aloud, Miss Erica. Dun, 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 dun. We will see you next time.
Bye.